Welcome to the If I Had More Time podcast. I am your host this week, John Thomas, and I am joined with a couple of really good friends of mine. See, Liz and Eric are away right now, and my goodness, guys, this is an all-star cast assembled for this week's podcast. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
I'm just sad it's not Liz. I'm not going to lie, man. This is Jared. Very excited to be here again, but I was told Liz was going to be hosting. And so
was I, and here I am.
I'm going to have to go.
It's going to be great. If you can't tell by that silky smooth voice behind the microphone, this is my good friend, our Irvine lead pastor, Jared Kirkwood. How you doing, buddy?
Very well. Good to see you.
All right. One more.
My name's Dallas. I get to be our young adults pastor Thursday nights.
Incredible. Guys, really a joy to sit and host this conversation with you. We are in week 5 of our series looking at the book of Exodus. Just been an incredible series. And Jared, you got to teach an incredible passage on the 10 Commandments, so much more than that, but looking at the giving of the 10 Commandments to the people of Israel and the implication of that and how we live through that. Just love to hear, just as you studied and prepared for teaching this weekend, what were the things maybe you wrestled with that stood out to you as you're preparing for it? And then even the things that you felt like, oh man, I wish I had a little bit more time, hence the name of this podcast, to unpack these particular truths that you looked into this week.
You know, I had the opportunity to teach in Genesis as well, and was given Genesis 1 and 2 to teach in one weekend. And I felt the same pressure on this message, which is how do you teach the full 10 Commandments in just a few minutes? As I studied and read, there is so much written on the giving of the 10 Commandments, and as you said, John, the implications of them. It is kind of everything. I mean, it's so much. The law is not just a central theme in God's word. It is one in which it's way up there because it paves the way for why Jesus came. And so trying to distill that down into 32 minutes or whatever was an incredible challenge. And part of the decision that I had to make was to say, we're not actually going to teach each of the commandments. Instead, it's going to be, we're going to teach the 10 Commandments essentially as a concept. And there's so much that you could do in each of the 10 themselves. Right. We probably don't want to do that on this podcast either, but I will say it is one of those things in which if we wanted to go through a couple of them, it's just incredible to think about how God organized those things. And then ultimately the implication being as we love him and as we love others, was his original design.
That's right. Yeah, and I love what you're saying. Not just the way that he organized them, but even the way that he distributed them. You talked a little bit about that in your message about when the 10 Commandments came in his relationship with his people. Just talk to us about why that was important, about what happened before the 10 Commandments, and then God gives us the 10 Commandments. There's a sequence to that, which you hit on a little bit. And why is that important for us?
Well, it's everything. If God had given the 10 Commandments and said, if you follow these things, I will rescue you, they would have never been rescued.
Right.
But it was God's decision in a covenant relationship to deliver the people of Israel. And then after months, in fact, there were 3 months in which they had been delivered and they lived in the wilderness, this radical reorientation season in which their Redeemer, the one who rescued them, is going to build a relationship of trust with them. And then it's after months later that Mount Sinai takes place, and then he gives us the 10 Commandments. I think about that as even Jesus, as he comes onto the scene, he is declared by God as his son whom he loves and is well pleased. And then Jesus himself goes into the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And it's there that so much happens even to the person of Jesus. The people of God spent time in the wilderness before God tells them how to live and what to do.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it comes after receiving. I love that. You had those beats in your message about they were delivered and then they were declared. Yep. And then now here's the implications of what it means to live as a distinct people, to live really as a holy people. And it's interesting. How do you take that then from, okay, this is what it means to live distinct. I think you talked about this a little bit in your message. The temptation of my own heart sometimes is, okay, I'm going to crush these 10 Commandments. I'm going to, like the moral code, I'm going to do it above and beyond. And as soon as I do it, then God, you owe me and you got to respond to my holiness. There is a tension in that.
Yeah.
That we sometimes actually, okay, it comes after, but I don't really believe that. So I got to prove that I can do all these things and more so that I can get something from God.
So I'm a checklist guy.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who, when I am going to build an IKEA furniture, I'm going to read the instructions. There's no words, and yet I still enjoy the pictures.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through the order. Like I will follow instructions. I will read. I will, as far as a task list goes, I'm guilty of building my list and then doing something that's not on my list and then writing it on my list just so that I could then check it off my list. This is a little bit of the danger of where you went with that, which is if the end motivation or the underlying motivation of each of those things is about earning and approval, then that's where you can go wrong all the way through it. Because it is a set of instructions of which God expects them to follow.
Right.
It's not do this if you'd like. It's this is the best way to live. These are the commandments. They are commanded. And yet it's the underlying motivation that I think really does sort of become very important as you get to the New Testament. Because if it's about proving, you're completely missing the point.
That's right.
And I think you led with the question, what is your relationship with rules? And I was writing down there's rule followers, or you said there's people who make the rules, there's people who break the rules, and just how that changes. Your relationship with rules impacts how we interact. So how would different people view that with the way they view rules? How would the rule follower view the Ten Commandments? How does the rule breaker view the Ten Commandments? What's the difference?
Oh, for sure. I mean, a rule follower loves it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they could go wrong in the midst of it, right? Like, great, just give me the 10 Commandments, and they're going to assume that results in a relationship with God, but not necessarily, right? You can do all the right things and still miss Jesus. That's a problem. Rule breakers, that's a little bit more obvious, but we do know people, right? I mean, there are lots of people in our life that just love to find a way to get out of. John, you're kind of this person, actually.
Easy, bud.
You're a little bit of this guy.
I'm a host today, but I'd love to hear what you're going to say. Go ahead.
You're the type of person that's like, I know what I'm supposed to do, and then I'm going to kind of find a way to also do what I want to do, just a little bit.
Give me an example.
We'll save that for the review later.
Amazing. He's my friend and my line manager, ladies and gentlemen. And it works out great. Yeah, sure. We'd like to manipulate and find our own way through it, our own sort of interpretation of what we think it means. I mean, I think about, Jesus in the conversation with the rich young ruler in Matthew 19, where he comes to him, and says, "Teacher," which is interesting, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life effectively?
Yeah.
And then he says, "Well, have you kept the commandments?" And then Jesus rattles off basically the 10 Commandments. And the rich young ruler is like, "Yeah, I've done all of that since I was a child.
Yeah.
Like, I've crushed it.
Check.
I've done the
Yeah.
whole thing, So, and he's expecting Jesus to be like really impressed. Like, wow, this guy he's wealthy. He's young. He's influential. He's a ruler. And wow, he crushed the 10 Commandments. So, man, well done. And he's like, "No, actually, there's something you haven't done. Sell all your possessions and give it to the poor."
Right.
Which is about not just the mechanical list keeping. If I've done it, I kept some moral code, but it's how is that affecting and you did a great job of this, the horizontal expression of the commandments you really did it as Jesus does, distills it down to love of God and love of others.
Right.
How was that showing up?
It's even, I think some people would equate that story of the rich young ruler to say he'd follow all the commandments, so therefore that's why he's wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There would have been this natural, because of that, God has blessed. And yet the irony and the staggering turn in that story is Jesus, God in the flesh, is the one who says, "Okay, well then go sell all of those things in which you've accumulated in your life. Then I will know." So it's a really incredible thing that is more about what it reveals in your heart more than it is about the actions and the activities, although that's a part of it too.
That's right. And that gets to the question which you talked about a bit in your message too, of why were we even given the 10 Commandments? Why were we even given the law? What's the purpose of the 10 Commandments? What's the purpose of the law? Is it so that we can have a shiny reward for our efforts at the end of it and show our holiness and our distinctiveness? Like what is that? You talked a little bit about that in your message, but just say a little bit more about the purpose of the law.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of not just what could be a whole message, but it is something that shows up oftentimes in many messages, which is that the law, while not necessarily intended to do it, the reality is it does reveal our own inability to keep the law. So does God give the law to the nation of Israel and expect them to be holy and perfect forever. I think he desires that, and yet is also very aware that it's not going to happen. So same thing with us, right? That as you get to Romans chapter 3, you get a picture of the law is the thing that in which reveals our own sin and brokenness.
That's
it
right.
becomes this mirror. And so that can cause some people to say, well, then I'm not even going to bother trying anyway. But that's also missing the point. The point is if the law reveals, it should cause you to look to Jesus.
That's good.
It should be the thing that causes you to, with humility and acknowledgement, to just go, Jesus, I can't do this on my own, which is exactly the point.
Totally. But man, we think we can.
Yeah.
Rich young ruler, I've done it all. The people of Israel in Exodus 24, all the Lord has spoken, we will do.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. We're going to crush it.
We got it.
It's like, no, God's calling us to be distinct. At the same time, we see this through the story of our own lives. We are incapable of living that out on our own power. And that's the whole point, right? That's the power and the invitation of the gospel.
Then you turned it for us, and I love like the love God, love others, and then how do we practically do that through serving? And you said something like, "Will I feel different when I serve?" And like you're looking for this immediate, like the moment I start serving, like something's gonna come over me. I'm gonna completely change. Everything's gonna be different. But maybe walk through that a little bit more. Like how have you or all of us, how have we felt different by jumping in and serving?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I became a Christian when I was 18 years old, and I was a volunteer at 19. So it was only 12 months between saying yes to Jesus and then being on a ministry team. And I felt wildly uncomfortable with it. I did not know what I was doing. I just felt like a fraud. I'm like, what do I really know? And I was serving with our junior high kids, and I'm sitting with seventh graders that knew more about the Bible than I did. Like, that's really embarrassing and humiliating. But it was over time that I started to realize this is starting to feel different than any other aspect of my life. I'm enjoying this in different ways. And there's something that's gratifying and getting that sense of I'm doing something that really matters. Those things take time, but man, when you start to get a glimpse of it, it's so much better than any other hobby or service project you've ever been a part of. There's something deep, but that time I think is really important about it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I remember when I first started serving and I was playing guitar for a church and I just felt tired because we had rehearsals at 6 a.m. Like, this is it. I'm playing the same like 4 chords over and over.
Yeah.
And you're not really feeling the fruit. But even in the last 2 weeks, someone came up to me. I was at a funeral and someone was like, "Hey, I just want to say thank you." And this was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for how you served. And here's how it inspired my life. And now he is serving in the church as a music director.
Yeah.
And he got to say, "Hey, you were one of the people that inspired me." And so all those hours, I finally years later was like, "Wow, I made an impact by playing guitar. Like, God used me in that way."
Yeah.
And I felt that. So it's not always the immediate feeling. Like in that moment, I felt it a decade later.
Yeah.
4
it's
chords,
really good.
man. 4
Yeah.
chords can do
4
that.
chords can do it.
Yeah, 4 chords of
And
the
a
truth,
capo.
man. That's all you need. And a capo. Yeah,
Yep.
that could help too. That's it. That's right. Yeah, it's so good. I mean, one of the questions I know that we're often asked is, I just want to grow. Like, how do I grow spiritually? What does that look like? And sometimes on the back end of that, it's met with, I want to learn more stuff. I need more knowledge. I need more information. What book should I read? And that's all good and great. And we should develop in that way. But man, the best place to put yourself in a position to grow is put yourself in a position where you feel like you're overwhelmed, where you're out of your depths.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's leading a junior high or a high school small group,
That's right.
whether that's serving on a parking team somewhere where you feel like I am woefully unprepared for this moment, or I feel
Yes.
underqualified for this moment. It's actually the growth comes in stretching.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that you invited our church into that. And you do such a great job of this. I've been in so many meetings with you. I'd love for people to just kind of hear your heart about this, because you do this in such a sincere way. When we're talking on a staff team, as we do regularly, about the joy and the opportunity to invite people into serving, just talk about like how you've talked to our team about that. Like, why do we do that?
Well, I think that, thanks, John. I do think that serving is the way to tap into the great adventure of following after Jesus. It's risky, it's scary, it's uncomfortable. It puts you in a place where you really need Jesus in a different kind of way. And yet it's oftentimes upon some reflection or looking back that you realize that's the time that not only did I grow the most, but I made the most friends, and I got to learn some new things about myself. I mentioned this last week on the podcast that I was going to be heading up to high school camp, and now here I am back from high school camp, and it was so cool to lead the volunteer huddle on Tuesday night. There was 125 adult leaders that were there that were representing all of our congregations, and they're hanging out for 6 days with our
Amazing.
teenagers.
Legends, man.
They are.
Yes.
And they wore it on their face. They looked like legends, and they had been through it, right? And it was a joy for me to get to just encourage them both collectively and then with every conversation I had to say not only thank you, but to remind them that what they're doing is of eternal significance. And it is the best and most beautiful story they could be writing for their life. And they all knew it. They knew it. They had at that point 3 nights of cabin conversations and rec games and, little bit of sleep and a lot of bit of just getting to invest in this next generation. And that night we got to be there for the moment where kids placed their faith in Jesus for the first time.
Beautiful.
And it was just awesome. Staying around afterwards, cabin leaders are coming up to me saying, I've been praying for this kid for years.
Wow.
And they stood up tonight, and I can't wait for what God's going to do. That's the kind of stuff that you get to be a part of when you serve the church. That's just unlike anything else.
Totally.
It's the absolute best.
Yeah, and you're not saying it, so I'll say it for you. But what you told me too in that volunteer huddle and seeing leaders, because you have a long legacy of serving here faithfully in this church for years and decades actually. And how many of those were students that you had poured into at some point? And that's the legacy of serving, right?
Yeah.
Like you never know the exchange, the conversation, the time spent of how it's going to impact and change not only somebody's life, but somebody's life as a result of that.
That's
so good, man.
There was a bunch of leaders there that used to be high school students when I was a pastor a bunch of years ago, and I got to tell you, it was not the ones I expected.
Wow.
And yet God is using them in such cool ways. And I think that's important for us, that we don't think that jumping in and serving is because we're so skilled and we have everything it takes that God would be so blessed to use me. No. I mean, it was the kids that I didn't expect that they would be here, and they're the ones that are making this incredible, significant impact in our students now. And it was really fun for me to get to see the potential that God had seen in them now getting to come to fruition right here at this camp. It is not even anywhere near the end of their story.
Right.
And yet look at what he's doing just in the courage of these kids to say, I'm going to step up and try to follow after Jesus. And then years later, here they are leading the next generation.
It's
so fun.
I love it, man.
And
It's
I think one of the ways you've helped me with serving too is we're not just filling teams like,
That's right.
from our church side, like, we got to fill teams in numbers. But Jared, you really helped us. Like, this is essential to discipleship, and it's really helpful for us to like remind ourselves as leaders, as pastors here, to remind ourselves like serving is so important, even right now for us in our spiritual journey, and how important it is for the people we get to lead.
That's right.
It's part of the discipleship journey.
Tell us more about, like, that's awesome to hear the way that you're saying that. Tell us something in young adults or Thursday nights where you've seen that as true.
Yeah, I got stopped last weekend. Someone came up, they grabbed my shoulders, and hey, I just want to say thank you. I'm like, my mind is racing. I'm like, what did I do? Where do I know you? And she just said, hey, I want to say thank you. There's this girl who I've known for a long time, and I never thought she had anything to do with the church. She started going to Thursday nights. She started serving on Thursday nights, and she is 180 different.
Wow.
Completely different. She's joining a volunteer team. Kind of like you were saying, it's not the people you expected. She's like, this would be one of the last people I would ever expect to be serving and inviting people using social platforms to Thursday night.
Awesome.
And it's incredible. I can think of another couple, Jake and Corey. I remember Jake, I met him at Man Camp 2 years ago, and he's like, I don't know a single person here. So we met at Man Camp, came back down the mountain, invited him to get plugged in, start serving. Him and his wife were serving. Him and his wife were every weekend out on the patio. If you just saw pictures of them, the joy that comes from them when they serve, the way they worship, their whole life has been transformed from stepping into serving other people each and every week. I mean, it's just story after story on Thursday night, watching our team grow. And it's not about the numerical growth, but it's, wow, disciples are being formed every single week.
It's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's what we want for ourselves. That's what we want for every Jesus follower to have that lifelong journey adventure of really you're no more like Jesus than when you're serving others.
That's right.
And when you're serving others, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you because you get to experience that transformation and that growth in your own heart. It's a win for others because they're impacted, stories and lives are changed, and ultimately it's a win for the kingdom, right? And so that's why we invite ourselves into it. That's why we invite others into it. And it's part of what it means to be holy. I mean, you think about that word holy when God says, be holy as I am holy. Like, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. We're not perfect. But this word that you've used in your message, you've used it's distinct. It's uncommon, right? So to not be holy is just to be common. To be holy is to be uncommon. It's to be set apart. And so our lives are meant to be uncommon. They're meant to be distinct. And one of the ways that we can display that in a culture where it's all about project self and hyper individualism is actually, I'm going to live my life in service of others because that's what Jesus ultimately did for me. And so I love that you've made that connection so brilliantly, teaching the 10 Commandments. We receive it, and so we express it. And we express it by serving others as Jesus has served us. So it's really good.
Yeah. I think the most attractive people in the world are the ones who choose to live for others rather than exclusively for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's going to disagree with that. It like the most amazing people in your life are the ones who are just others focused. And that's what serving does, is it just puts you in a place where you're going to care for others as you care about yourself. And that's the irony of it, is that you really do get to do something for yourself by doing something for others. And then the deeper cut as you get from the 10 Commandments is that's the way in which we worship God.
That's it.
That's how we designed it.
That's it, man. Awesome. Well done, guys. Fun to host it this weekend. I don't know if this will ever happen again, if the stars will align for the three of us to be in here all at once, but we're so glad we got to do it this one time.
We're the three guys that get most confused for each other.
This is true.
I'm prepared for people to say, Dallas, great job this weekend.
Yeah. Of all the weeks to not record this would have been a good week to show that we are, in fact, three distinct, there's that word again, individuals.
Yeah, I get Lon John all the time.
Me too. And you know what I get when you preach?
You are lunch.
Great job, man. You did a great job out there. And I just take it and say thank you.
Yep.
All right,
Well,
guys.
here's the hope, and Liz is back next week.
That's it. That's going to happen. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on here next time.